Welcome to Tuesday. It's January 5th, 2020. A Pacific cold front is going to be racing through the Rocky Mountain West today and tonight, bringing a shot of snow to the high country of Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, and the central and northern mountains of Colorado. This front will also bring a little bit of moisture and wind and snow shower activity to the plains later this afternoon and evening. Want to give a heads up to anybody traveling. By mid to late afternoon, I-25 and I-80 in southern and eastern and central Wyoming will be affected by these snow showers, wind, and icy conditions. Could have some poor travel weather from I-70 in Colorado north to I-80 and I-25 into Wyoming, I-90 as well. So be on the lookout for that. Nothing really big. It's just one of these little nuisance systems that can sometimes, especially by late afternoon and evening, as the sun sets, make for tricky travel. We have another weather system due late Thursday into Friday with similar results to this one. There's actually another system that could sneak in as we head into Saturday to affect some parts of the region. So it's still more the same. Little systems coming in off the Pacific, bringing Pacific air, not Canadian air, and really not turning to anything too big at the moment. We still see bigger changes possible between January 14th and January 21st. I really think that it's the middle to the end of this month before we really start to have anything that would be considered harsh winter weather conditions. We're still cut off from Arctic air and will be for a bit longer. But after that January 14th time frame, things change. This is where we are today. Doesn't look like much, does it? This little ripple coming on through was yesterday up here. This system is just racing along, but it's moist, it's energetic. This will be a nice producer of snow in the high country, good water content with it. This system races through and is gone. By Thursday morning, it's down into the southern part of the United States. Here's our next wave moving in late Thursday into Friday. Again, doesn't look like much, but it's enough to bring snow to the mountains again, a few showers on the plains. That'll be followed by another system late Friday and the Saturday. Now, this one we need to kind of keep an eye on because as this system dives south, it may end up going into western Colorado Friday night into Saturday. Have some question marks with it, not biting on it yet. But as you can see, it becomes a bit more of a potent looking system for eastern Utah, western Colorado, parts of the region as we get into Friday night and Saturday. So we'll put a question mark on this one, but you're going to want to watch the weather Friday night and Saturday for the potential of the system to come in. We'll keep an eye in on it. Behind that, we have a high pressure ridge that will come in behind it. And I think what will happen is after this system scoots out on Saturday, by Sunday into the first half of next week, this high pressure ridge will come on in. Notice that all the dark blue, gray colors are still way, way up north, way far away from us. And for the most part, this is a mild, relatively speaking, pattern, Pacific dominated for January. That Arctic air is still very, very far away, at least here through the weekend. But we've got these little storms that'll keep the weather interesting here for the next 5 to 6 days. If you're a skier, if you're a snowmobiler, this is the type of pattern you'd like to see as it keeps the snow fresh on the ski slopes. This is what the snow forecast looks like through Friday afternoon. And you can see this looks just like a map. I have showed you a map like this for, I don't know, 6 or 7 weeks in a row where the mountains get snow. We have very little snow on the plains. And you occasionally get a little snow on the plains like what we've got right here with these fronts coming on through. But far away from the mountains, you just really don't get much. And look at this. You get south of I-70. Nothing down here. Absolutely nothing. But this is exactly what La Niña does. This is a continuation of that La Niña pattern. Now let's talk about that long range. I'm going to show you these two graphs. Arctic oscillation graph. This goes out through January 20th. What we've been showing you is that the Arctic oscillation's been in a negative phase, and that's made the pattern, certainly it's made it a little bit more busy. Look what happens, though, with the Arctic oscillation forecast. It just really plummets and gets into deeper negative territory. Once we get around, it starts really around the 15th or so, and really bottoms out around the 20th. This is as far as the model can see, but there's a really big drop. The North Atlantic oscillation is also starting to get into a stronger native category as we get to that same time frame. So these two circulations, the Arctic and the North Atlantic, are sinking. They're sinking up towards the middle to the end of January. And we're starting to see that. Now, this is the Canadian model. Now, this may be overdoing it, but what I want to show you, and this is what we want to watch for. If we start to see a big ridge develop along the west coast or just off the west coast, that opens the door to Canada, and that colder air begins to spread in. And this cold air gets the ability to come up over the ridge back down into here. What this is showing around the 15th on the Canadian model is the potential for cold air to spill into the lower 48 states, mainly from the Continental Divide and points east, while the west coast is protected by the ridge. We'll see what happens. This is a 10-day forecast, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. If we were to go out to 15 days, we see high pressure extending all the way up into Alaska. When there's a ridge up there, we go into the fridge. And you can see all the blue? See all the gray here? Basically, this is a polar vortex is what we've got right here. Again, this is right around, it's the 15th to the 21st or so where we start to see these changes. Got to take it with a grain of salt. This is a 15-day model. So you just have to use this with a little bit of suspicion, but when those Arctic oscillations and North Atlantic oscillations in sync, well, this does have some credibility. Now, if this does happen, look what happens with temperatures relative to average. You have basically freezing temperatures all the way to the Gulf Coast by the 19th and 20th of January with bitter below average temperatures, below zero. These are negative zero temperatures up here in the Dakotas. Notice the divide is really holding up the Arctic air. And what will sometimes happen, folks, is sometimes these Arctic air masses may be displaced more to the Great Lakes. And you see this orange? This orange might extend to the divide. And we actually, in this part of the country, miss the Arctic air to the east. Sometimes that Arctic air comes in and plunges further west. So it bears watching. Again, this is something that's in the longer term. We're talking something 10 to 14 days from now. But this is the only opportunity over the next 3 to 4 weeks where we see the Arctic air potential spilling into North America, at least the lower 48, and you can see Canada there. This would be a really cold pattern for the nation, except for the Great Basin and the West Coast. So we'll keep an eye on it for you. We're going to see this unfold, whether or not it transpires or comes together or not. It'll be interesting to watch and something to plan for if it does come together. Thanks for watching and listening to the Day Weather Podcast. We'll talk to you on Wednesday. Have a great Tuesday, everybody.